Food worker. Let's go.
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden. As a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm the Vuldoon.
Welcome to Lighting the Void. All broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. It's go time. It's a brand new week. It's Tuesday, the 17th, September 17th, 2024. And tonight might be one of the most deepest shows that we're going to do. I got some stuff that we're going to get into with Vuldoon here. This is important. A deeper understanding of things. We might actually be merging. There might be clues tonight of how to merge the realms of the esoteric and the occult with the out-of-body world. I think what we're going to get into tonight, Vuldoon specifically doesn't really know that he's doing it. I don't think he knows that he's doing it, but there's going to be some pretty revealing stuff tonight, in my opinion. So for the longest time on this broadcast, we've been fascinated with what's called the astral realm or the out-of-body experience. We've been doing this podcast since 2016, 2017, and that has been one of the major topics of this broadcast, not to mention the occult, the esoteric, and then sometimes we talk about other fringe stuff. Speaking of fringe, for those of you that are panicking about the website, we're updating the website. It is going through a rebirth, right? And perfectly so, because new things are happening for the fringe, not just an update on the website, but it's going to transform into a whole entirely new thing. We're cutting the slobby fat off of it, the gunk, and we'll be bringing it back. And thanks to your support and the family of people at the Fringe FM, this is going to happen soon, very soon. I'm hoping before next week, but because I do the show and I work 2 jobs. Speaking of jobs, if you don't have your financial shit together, you need to get it together. DEK Consulting. Look at the email. Call us down there. We'll help you. And yes, I'm helping do that too. Because as I go through the earth element, I got involved. And to get involved is the good thing to do. And but my brother Dave is running this whole thing, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows he's really good, actually. Dancing Dave. All right, so tonight, Vuldoon is going to get into some really specific stuff here. Now, he is not going to talk about the occult, but I am. So if any of you have watched the tarot videos, then you'll know that I bring this picture up a lot, the tree of life, right? And in here, let's just say, if you're listening on the radio, I guess you'll have to imagine me talking about this, I guess. But in here, somewhere between here and here, this is all the astral stuff, right? So when we go through the earth, we go through this astral stuff, and the moon area kind of represents our unconscious, the subconscious is what we're going to talk about. This barrier, this praxis area that's in our minds, that's in our consciousness, we're going to get deep into this tonight, okay? I'm having fun drawing squiggly lines for some reason. So, well, Vuldoon's going to get into the unconscious. Now, we have to understand that, and I think most of us understand, that the subconscious, or what we call the subconscious, is that point. Let's say it's the point between the physical world for us and all of the other cool stuff in the so-called spiritual world and the metaphysical world. So where the figure 8 meets in the middle, that doorway for us, whether it's ascension, breaking through barriers, growth, the out-of-body experience, all kinds of stuff involves that doorway. And it's right there in that twilight state of the golden dawn of the hypnagogic little state there that we have to hold ourselves in to see this world. So I don't think that Vuldoon really knows that he's getting into that, because he's totally focused on the out-of-body experience. But he came up with some laws about the out-of-body experience, right? The fundamental law of astral projection is what he says. The subconscious will. Now think about this. Why is the will talked about so much in magic, in the occult? There's going to be some big drops tonight if you can pick up on it, okay? people individually project. Vuldoon gets into this, right? And when I'm speaking of Vuldoon, I'm speaking of this book that was written in the 20s, Astral Projection, let's just call it by Sylvan Muldoon, all right? Now, he says, we've spoken of individuals that project spontaneously and have stated that a certain type or the nervous type of people often just spontaneously astral project. But it's not because of their adaptable temperament alone. The subconscious will must first decide to move the body, for otherwise even the subject of nervous temperament will not project. Now, the Thelemites, the religion of Thelema, their whole thing is about the will. I'm not a Thelemite, all right? So just because I'm talking about something doesn't mean that I am that or whatever. But their whole thing is about this will. In fact, it's above love. They always say, that's their saying, right? Love is the law, love under will. Because to understand the will is a fundamental principle of understanding magic. And it's a fundamental principle of how our desire works with our higher self to manifest something, right? But this also happens at the trigger point where we get out of body too. This is where these two worlds start to come together. So I think it's our job as void walkers not to focus on one belief or another. Your spiritual practice is your spiritual practice. Whatever that is, that's fine. But to stay open-minded. So when you stay open-minded, that allows you to see the truth. It allows you to see the parallels in everything. Because the moment you take a belief system into your psyche, it puts these barriers up and it starts to create a world around that belief system. All right? So recall the fundamental law of astral projection. When the subconscious will becomes possessed of the idea, that's a funny word to use, but becomes possessed of the idea to move the body, or the coinciding bodies, our phantom body and our physical body. So the will is going to move both of those bodies. When it becomes possessed of that idea and the physical body becomes incapacitated, that's the key. The subconscious will moves the astral body out of the physical. So how do we incapacitate the physical body? Well, we've learned how to relax to the point of actual paralysis, where the body falls asleep, but the mind is still awake. And the unconscious will moves that body, that astral body, right? There's other ways to do it. We've learned that you can be in the dream world and set up certain types of dreams where you can bring yourself back to your etheric double or your astral body from the dream. You can also, so there's the peeling out method in the hypnagogic paralysis state. There's coming back to that body from the dream world. Then there's also projection itself. And this is what William Buhlman specializes in, where you visualize certain places that you are. Now, all of the teachers nowadays have taken the fundamental teachings of the OG OBE teachers from, I guess you could say, Vuldoon, Monroe, William Buhlman. If you really study them, you'll see this, right? Robert Bruce, these people. And they've done it enough where they've helped. So you can see, like, there's people teaching how to get out of body and stuff, right? And they're adapting what their experiences to these fundamental teachings. So Vuldoon says it's no trick to cause the subconscious will, there's that word again, the will, to move the coinciding bodies. We are fully conscious and are capable of moving. We do this every day. All we need to do is to suggest to ourselves that we walk, and the subconscious will keep us walking until it receives further instructions from the mind. The subconscious will, therefore, is really not mysterious. It is the key to the occult, and the word occult means hidden, right? But it's really not that mysterious. We use it every day. So how do we do this to move the astral body when we're asleep? Now, this is an important question, and he's going to show us how it's done. But we have to reason this in our minds. The more we understand this, the more proficient we're going to be at being able to do it, right? So if the factors which stimulate the subconscious will to action unintentionally can be discovered. Cannot these same factors be put to work intentionally and produce the same effect? What did he just say right there? Think about what he just said, because I did pre-read some of this. If the factors which stimulate the subconscious will, think about that. What is that? Don't we do that in magic? When we do sigils or when we do ceremony, sometimes when we pray? What are we doing there? So in a sense, it seems like we're trying to trick our subconscious when we set up things like vibrations, colors, smells, all of these different things to activate that subconscious. Or when we do sigils so that our subconscious can see the symbolism in the hidden little witchy picture. It's a praxis point that we're trying to contact here. But he's not even talking about the occult or the esoteric. He's talking about, this has been my whole point all along. He's talking about the out-of-body experience, and he's describing exactly how the occult works. Cannot these same factors be put to work intentionally and produce the same effect? There are two methods of investigation in all scientific problems, that of observation and experiment. This is how you find proof of things, right? And this is exactly how Vuldoon presents his knowledge of astral projection, by careful observation, analysis, and experiment. I think Monroe did the same thing, though. But this guy goes on to say, this Flammarion guy who's quoting Vuldoon, he says, I've been able to determine these factors which arouse the subconscious will. These are the factors that arouse the subconscious will. The key, the initiative, fire force of magic is the will. It's our desire, but the will is made up of, this is why people have a hard time understanding what the will actually is. We'll will it and it will be done. But the will isn't just desiring something. A desire is a part of the will. So the key to all of this is at first understanding the will and then mastering the will. The will is the will. I keep saying will, right? But the will and the unconscious is what's running the show. It's running everything. It's the master of all this, and it's yours. It belongs to you. But for so long, as we grow up in this life, that thing that's running the show, we have not been aware of whatsoever. That's why it's called the unconscious too, or the subconscious. It creates our life, our success, our failures, our actions, reactions. Everything that we manifest is in that doorway. Mastering this thing, master the will, and you will be able to master your reality. Now, you're not going to so-called live forever. Your physical body is going to die. But understanding this is the key to your conscious elevation, in my opinion. Also, the keys to the occult knowledge, the esoteric work, the out-of-body experience, and the possibility of being able to get into your so-called star body or astral body and never forgetting who you are, perhaps actually remembering who you really are, because you might not be this person that you think you are. Like, I'm Joe Roop. I might just be playing a character and I'm remembering who I really am. You see what I'm saying? So these are the factors of the will and how we put these into use, according to Vuldoon. But only for the purpose, now hear this, this is only for the purpose of producing projection of the astral body. A, dreams. Flying dreams and dreams which arouse, here's the thing, dreams which arouse desire and habit. Well, what is that? What is desire and magic? It's fire. It's the element of fire. B, desire. To possess or to do something, not a necessity. Either intense desire or suppressed desire. Either something that you intensely desire or something that you've suppressed for a long time. That's still fire, right? Bodily desires, necessities, hunger, thirst, innervation. He calls it like the lack of cosmic energy. And D, habit. Long-standing habits are programs. that we've unconsciously programmed ourselves. Long-standing habits, routines, desirable habits, and broken habits. Some of them, he says, are stronger than others, but as you will learn soon, dreams have, we already talked about dreams, how the subconscious will is activated by the dream world. See, Carl Jung figured this out too. That was Carl Jung's thing. He figured out that symbolism in dreams, he was talking about the same thing. Because after so long, when you become, like, if I'm sure some of you've read the Red Book, how powerful that world is and how real it really is. It almost shows you that this world is the actual illusion. That's why it's not permanent. It's temporary. But we're in these bodies and we sense everything, so it must be reality, right? But it's not. So we've seen how the subconscious will is activated by them and have also learned how to use dreams. Well, I say it's not, but it is part of it. And this is only to promote astral projection. So next we shall discuss all of this stuff. The subconscious will does not constitute the entire realm of the subconscious mind. So remember that the will is separate from the world of the subconscious. The subconscious is so vast, so powerful that it can do everything itself, so to speak. And you know as well as I do, when we get into dream work, that thing is the thing that's talking to us all the time. Or the symbols that we're getting from it are coming through the subconscious. It's always hinting at us all the time or trying to guide us through things. But it speaks through symbols. Carl Jung talked about that too, through dream and symbol, right? So the subconscious mind can suggest things to us. That's what it does. It suggests some action to the subconscious will as it does while we dream. So if one of the factors which he's listed here happens to come to the surface in our life or is so strong that it just remains at the surface of the subconscious mind during sleep, that's the key. This is why I told you guys, like this, you will get out of body if you have an extreme desire to do so. And I know this, and I'm sure you have done this at least once in your life, where you've just been dedicated and obsessed with something so much that the fires inside you are burning so bad that you're not stopping until it gets done. That's obsession or possession, not in a scary sense, but it really is. You're becoming possessed or obsessed with the idea of this thing. You got to be careful where you put this energy too, because, well, we'll get into that later. But so that is the suggestion to the subconscious will to move the body when we're asleep. It comes from the subconscious mind, just as the suggestion to move the body when we are awake comes from the conscious mind. So what is this weird place then? Right? This weird place. So if we're moving around and when we're in our bodies, we're in the conscious mind, and everywhere else in the dream world and the astral world or whatever's going on, especially in the dream world, we're living in the subconscious mind of symbols. But the astral body is the what? The etheric double, this weird place in between, is what? It's the 2 in 1. When you can bring body and spirit, right, the conscious and the unconscious, and merge the two, the will is activating all of these things. Not only is it the key to the out-of-body experience, it's the key to understanding what is really going on in the astral realm, and two, like, what the hell are we, like, why things are manifesting in our life the way they are here on the physical plane. He's not saying that. I'm saying that. Because you could take all of these same principles that he's talking about in this chapter, and they directly apply to magic and the occult, but are usually symbolized, hidden by, not hidden on purpose, but symbolized by certain things. And the reason why they are is because your unconscious mind is the thing that understands symbols. This is why symbols are buried into the occult. So magic, like the elemental side of magic, is really the burning away of the old programs and the reestablishing the new programs of who you are in a more balanced way by allowing the subconscious mind to run the show. It is a bit of a surrender. And if you understand this, then you'll know why, this is why Robert Monroe and others go to these other places other than just the here and now and the etheric. They go to other places because they learn to surrender to their higher selves and let it guide them to other places. Right? So, I'm excited about this, actually. If you factor all this in, which they're talking about, and you let it come to the surface, or it's strong enough to remain at the surface of the subconscious mind during sleep, that is, the suggestion to the subconscious will to move the body when we're asleep comes from the subconscious mind, just as like I said, the suggestion to move the body when we're awake comes from our consciousness. It is the same will that moves the body regardless of the source or mind from which it takes the suggestion. The only reason why the astral moves out of the physical in the former case while we sleep and not in the latter case while we're awake, the reason why our astral body doesn't pop out while we're walking around awake, is simply because the physical counterpart is incapacitated in the former state. Hope that makes sense. So far as the suggestion is concerned, the subconscious will responds as readily to the subconscious suggestion as it does the conscious suggestion. So what he's saying there is that the will is what masters our energy and our movement. It masters what we do. The only reason why our physical body moves around is because the will is mastering the conscious state, our consciousness, when we're awake. When we're asleep, it moves us around in a certain way. The will is moving the subconscious. The Thelemites knew this, and a lot of magicians knew this. Crowley knew this. This is why I'm bringing up magic a lot, because they realized the will is running the show. We don't really have to define the will. We don't have to put a God name on it. I mean, we could. But we don't have to. Matter of fact, I would recommend that we don't do that. We don't start putting God names or symbols to what the will is. Just let it be the will. And we'll figure stuff out from there. Now, it's the same will that moves the body regardless of the source or mind from which it takes the suggestion. So far as the suggestion is concerned, it just responds the same way. So whether it's our consciousness or conscious, it responds the same way. This is also why people sleepwalk. We can readily see that the prime requisite is to impress one of these activating factors so strongly upon the subconscious mind that the mind will retain the impression during sleep. If some of you are picking up, if you're smelling what I'm stepping in here, think about how sigil magic works. We're impressing upon the subconscious mind when we do that. Factors so strongly, and we have to do it strongly too. That's why we do all the ceremony, the ritual, or some people actually, I think they masturbate to it when they do sigils. No better way to focus than that, right? But this can be done by way of the conscious mind, by repeated action, as in routine or suggestion, as in desire in some cases, by combining both action and suggestion. What is he talking about right here? Like, I'm excited because he's talking about magic as a whole. He just doesn't know it. Well, or what we call magic. Yeah. Repeated action, as in routine. What's another word for routine? Ritual. Or suggestion, as in desire, or in some cases by combining both suggestion and action. What is ceremonial magic? What do they do there? They're taking action. They're moving in meditation, vibrating names, things like that, doing it, invoking, praying, breathing, all the while keeping symbol around them for the senses to take in, whether it's colors, smells, music, whatever, however you do it. It's impressing upon the subconscious. So when we impress one of these activating factors upon the subconscious mind, there often occurs an unintentional projection while the subject sleeps, and this is why. Perhaps you have formed the habit of going to a certain place. You persist in this habit, and in doing so, you impress it upon the subconscious mind. So if this impression becomes strong enough and comes to the surface during sleep, the subconscious mind suggests that you repeat the action, and the subconscious will is imbued with suggestion. Other factors being favorable, temperament, inactivity of the physical body, etc. But either way, projection of the astral body will result. A lot of students have said that there is a spontaneous projection of the astral body, yet there's always some underlying cause. And the reason it is called spontaneous is merely because these causes intervened and conditions favorable to the projection were brought about unknowingly. Okay. So, same thing in spirituality, right? Or whenever you start to take control of your spiritual world, however you do it, whether you're going from a mystic approach and you're more of the meditating kind of surrendering, live and let live, all as one kind of balanced thing, or you're taking the magic approach, which is a more active approach to things, using the will to learn about all of these energies that's going on. Either way, you're no longer just a slave to all of the shit that happens in your life that's actually being programmed by your unconscious. It's weird, right? So before we become aware of these things, we're being programmed. This is why a lot of people are into conspiracy and things like that, because they realize, oh shit, we're being programmed. And the intelligent people, or the people that are aware of this, are running the show. Right? So we can do the same thing. We don't want to manipulate people, but we at the very least want to, like what Neo says in the Matrix, when, what did he say? He said, do you believe in fate? When Morpheus asked him, do you believe in fate? And he said, no. And he said, why not? He goes, because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life. And Morpheus, who is what? The dream god, right? Says, I know exactly what you mean. And what do we do when we're being programmed? When we first start waking up to the system, we start trying to find something to blame, like Mr. Smith's and all of this other stuff, when really they're just aware of the program and they're doing their job. So that's a whole other rant. But the OBE experience shows us this, right? The dream world shows us this too. Before we even care, listen, what am I trying to get at here? Before we even cared about getting out of body, all we did was we would do stuff in our waking life, and that's it. And then we would go to sleep and dream, and that's it. So some of us were lucky enough to learn either about the esoteric or the out-of-body experience, to see the architecture, to see the construct behind what's really going on. And Carl Jung said the same thing that Morpheus said to Neo, right? That people will do all kinds of stuff not to have to deal with themselves. Even spiritual stuff. They'll do whatever. But the real work begins when we see this program. Whether it's in ourselves, or whether it's what we're trying to manifest in our life, when we're trying to have happiness and abundance, or whether we're trying to get out of body and see the construct behind all of this stuff. So ordinary habit and ordinary desire, although they will sometimes bring about projection in the proper temperament, will not as a rule impress the subconscious mind so strongly. So if you have a deep-rooted habit or program and suddenly break it, the stress of expression becomes intensified in the subconscious mind. You can feel the stress within you. So while you sleep, the stress, the desire for expression of the habit, the determination to express it, which has accumulated in the subconscious, breaks loose, and the subconscious will endeavors to move the body in order to perform the habitual act. So you can even see in the esoteric side of things that people that do ceremony or daily meditation or things like that, especially if you have like a sacred space and what you're doing is you're creating an energy, because that's what habit, ritual, and ceremony is. You do this thing every day, the same thing every day. I think I saw Jane say something in the Discord chat about doing the LBRP, but suddenly reality's starting to feel a little different, and it will. You can't quite explain it, but it will. Not only that, I can assure you, at least for me, that it definitely helps you become more aware. I'm not going to promise you an OBE here, but it's going to help you become more aware of the astral world. All of the neophyte rituals do that. They do. Suppressed desire works the same way. You have a deep-rooted desire, and unless you can appease that desire, you must hold yourself back by conscious effort. Yet within yourself, you keep desiring. The fire keeps burning. Desiring, it just burns. And I can tell you as a man, for sure, I have desires that burn. Obviously, one of them is sexual. That stuff doesn't go away, at least for men, for I don't know when. Maybe when we get into our 80s, that burns inside of us like crazy. When we were young, it burned inside of us. But when we want something, that burns too. So we either appease that desire or we hold ourselves back. So think about that. Most of our life, especially for good people, right? We are suppressing our desires because we care about other people. We're not just doing whatever the hell we want to do because we want to do it regardless of who it hurts. No. We're not animals. We're not the nefesh, right? But the desires of the animal body are there. Just like when we fixate on an idea, like I want to do a podcast. I really want to do a podcast. I get really passionate about it. That desire burns too, right? So, but this keeps burning. You would satisfy that desire in a moment if it were not for some obstacle, right? Wouldn't you? Think about that. You would satisfy any desire that's burning inside you, torturing you to some people. Some people desire love so bad. We all desire love, okay? But to master that desire, some people desire it so bad it tortures them. I know, man. I've talked to these people. Like, I'm sure you have too. It tortures them. They desire comfort so bad it tortures them. Or just to experience stuff in life that, like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I want to do this and that. I want to travel. I want to surf. I want to go here. Instead, I'm stuck at this job, or I'm stuck doing this thing with this person or whatever, right? And the desire burns. It becomes conflicting a bit. But yet, we're not animals. For the most part. Now, some people are, but we're not. So by desiring and preventing yourself from appeasing that desire, you increase the stress within the subconscious mind. You can feel the urge of expression boiling within you. This is so synchronistic to the path of Shin that I just did in the videos on the tarot. You're at war with yourself, so to speak. The stress of expression becomes so great within the subconscious mind that it bursts forth, and when you sleep and can consciously prevent it no more, the will is impelled into action, the subconscious will. So you may act these things out symbolically in dreams, or you may even express, like I had a dream, I told Domek this too, I had a dream the other night, I was just angry. I was ready to bash people's teeth in. And I wasn't angry when I fell asleep. When I fell asleep, I don't remember feeling angry. In fact, when I woke up, as I journaled it, I'm like, why the hell am I angry? I started thinking about things. I'm not conscious of some things that are buried down in that. There's a desire in me that's not being fulfilled that's making me angry. Didn't even know about it in my conscious world. Everything's hunky-dory. you think, right? So, hence, the breaking of a long-standing habit or the suppressing of a desire will act the same way. And the stronger factors than mere habit or desire, they're stronger ones than that. The whole secret of causing the subconscious mind to suggest to the subconscious will is the stress of expression, which can be accumulated in the subconscious mind. Now, here's where he gets into the occult. Some occult experimenters believe that it is the subconscious will which is strengthened, that it is the subconscious will which suddenly bursts forth. Now, here's where he says, that's not true. The subconscious will is super powerful at times, and it is the stress of expression which is strengthened and bursts forth. It is not the subconscious will itself, but the stress of the will trying to express itself. Remember that the subconscious mind and the subconscious will are two different things. You cannot strengthen the subconscious will so that it would burst forth by night, so to speak. What you do strengthen is the impression in the subconscious mind, the stress of that expression. What are we doing in ceremony? Like, I don't do a lot of invocations unless it's like elemental, right? Maybe angelic. But when you do an invocation, that's exactly what you're doing. There's a stress of expression through all the symbols. And in fact, I want to get a little weird on you, but this is how it works. The more you get right-brained about it, and there's another 2-in-1 that's happening. It's all fragmented and fractal, but the fundamentals are the same in every part of the fractal. So the more you express yourself, if you, let's say you're doing like the middle pillar or whatever ritual you do, or you're doing a prayer. If you just say the words, no, yeah, there's some stuff there. The habit alone builds it up. This is why all the teachers say, regardless of how you're feeling, even if it's not the perfect ceremony or whatever, do it anyways, because it's going to build up that energy and that stress of expression. But you can really project that stress of expression if you get into the ceremony, just like you would if you got into a play or got into your art or sang a song or anything like that. The more romance, right, the more right-brained you are, mixed in with the left brain, the more the subconscious and the conscious come together. However you want to look at it, it's all the same on a certain level. The more powerful it becomes, the more stress of that expression becomes. And if you've listened to, I guess, Israel Regardie's tapes, when he does the invocation of Thoth and all those things, how beautiful it sounds, how into it he is. Seems weird. Yeah, it's going to seem a little weird because you're by yourself. And if somebody were to walk in and see you do that, I'm like, what the hell are they doing? It's no different than you singing a song or getting involved emotionally, especially like in a play or anything like that. In fact, the more you get involved, the better. And that's with everything. So what you do to strengthen the impression in the subconscious mind, or that stress of expression, acts as a suggestion to the subconscious will. Suppressed desire, broken habit, and routine are three outstanding factors that stress the subconscious mind and cause unintentional, quote, unintentional astral projection. Of course, other factors are favorable. Routine is any regular course of action adhered to day after day. That could be pleasure or anything. So, if you could watch an unconscious astral projector during the course of the actual projection itself, you would see that the phantom body, the etheric double, was following the routine which the subject was accustomed to follow during the day. It's just doing its habit. The subconscious mind has the action so deeply rooted in that phantom that it begins to follow its habitual course. This is why people see ghosts or whatever walking around the same spot, doing the same thing. It could just be an astral projector doing that, walking around doing the same thing. Routine and habit are more or less intermixed. And there is another reason why the person who is bedridden by sickness will often project. Because everyone follows some routine. So if you suddenly become sick or ill, Even if it's not that bad, but let's say you're bedridden. Well, your routine is not to be bedridden. This is why people hate, like I hate being sick. I hate it. Because they're used to doing whatever they want to do. Their routine. Their routine is not to be bedridden. So that alone is causing a stress of projection or of expression. I hope I'm making sense. So everyone who follows some routine and the action becomes, through repetition, deeply rooted in the subconscious mind. Whether you're aware of it or not, there's always a stress there in the subconscious mind. And this is one of the strongest stresses we possess. We've all heard of people who just must work. They have to, because they say they get irritable if they stop working, or they'll retire, or they'll die if I stop working. That's because the stress of the routine is there. This is why it's hard to break addictions, habits, things that we constantly do. There's a stress there. So long as you continue the daily action, you work off the stress, and therefore you don't notice it. But if suddenly you break the routine, you will feel the urge within you. Farmers especially seem to have this stress of routine strongly rooted in their subconscious mind, because they go out, they wake up at a certain time every day, they go farm, they do everything every day. So imagine if you take that person away from that scenario, there's gonna be a stress there, a stress of expressing what they usually do. Now, if they will try to stop farming, try to live in town, and it won't be long before they're back on the farm again. They have to work off that urge. This is hard too. This is why this is a reason why people become codependent. You know, they confuse codependency and passion for somebody, even if it's toxic as it is, with, like, quote, love. Love is a separate thing than codependency. Love is free. All right. So all I'm doing is just trying to get you to think about this, right? So when you're suddenly compelled to break a routine, I guess maybe through sickness, the subconscious mind will begin to accumulate because it has not worked it off, just as gas accumulates in a bottle. And if it were not uncorked at times and allowed to escape, it would blow up on its own accord. This stress would become so strong that it would remain on the surface of the subconscious or come to the surface of the subconscious. It'd either stay there or come up to it while you're asleep. And the subconscious would be brought under its sway, an attempt to move the astral body out of the physical and perform the routine action in question. So now it may seem a little strange that if we adhere tenaciously to a routine, it will strengthen the stress of it. And to break the routine will also strengthen the stress of it. But a little reflection will show you that this is true. And incidentally, this agrees in part with the findings of Dr. Charles Lancelin, a French scientist of note who uses tenacious routine to develop astral projection. So Lancelin, this guy wrote this in the 20s, all right? So at the same time, he agreed with him, but he started to disagree with him when he states that the success of the experiment depends upon the power which the subconscious will possesses. For I maintain that it is the power of the stress of the expression in the subconscious mind would suggest to the subconscious will that one must develop the stress and not the subconscious will itself. However, we both agree that tenacious routine brings about the result. I just want you guys to think about this. And the reason why this made so much sense to me when I first read it is because my first OBE experience, I did start, like, daily, I was doing the LBRP, right? Number one. And that was bringing about all kinds of, not paranormal activity, but like Jane said, things were starting to feel a little different, almost as if I was slipping into a different timeline or something. But during the ritual, there were times in my mind where I'm like, this is stupid. This isn't doing anything. What is this doing? But I started noticing things, right? Not to the point of poltergeist activity or anything like that, but to the point where things started to seem a bit different. And my reality did change after that, big time. Man, I ended up falling in love and, like, traveling and seeing Florida and Arizona and New York and people were just throwing, support to the show like crazy. I mean, I felt happiness like I'd never felt. And yet that expression of the desire of what I wanted was still burning. Like it was still there. The only times that I felt relief is when I actually, and I'm kind of relating to this parallelly, like in a parallel way. The only times I felt relief of that stress of expression was in the moment of doing exactly what I dreamed about. Whether it was surfing or eating the meal that I always wanted to eat, or seeing the palm tree, or smelling the salty air of the beach, or making love to the person that I love. This moment of peace and fulfillment hit me. And slowly my OBE experiences, I didn't stop doing like magic, but my OBE experiences started getting more limited, right? And I thought about this after I read this today. I was like, my OBE experiences did start getting more limited when things began to manifest as I desired them. These two worlds of magic and the out-of-body experience, if you don't have to be involved in both, but if you are, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So, yeah, like all kinds of stuff is coming to me here, and I don't really know how to say it all, but so I'll just stick with what he's saying here. So the first thing to do, and we're back to the OBE stuff, I'm just telling you that this happens on all levels of life, not just the out-of-body experience. It's going to happen in your life and your manifesting ability, everything. And yes, I can show you exactly where it happens and how it happens in the tree. I can. And it's all been mapped out there for us. So the first thing to do to ensure the success of our astral projection, according to Lancelin, is to dynamize the will, to hyper-dynamize it. In fact, so that it is overcharged and capable of bursting forth like champagne. So when the cork is removed, that kind of, champagne's bubbling out, it's trying to get out, right? There are various methods of doing this, and one of the simplest is to repeat to oneself many times just before dropping off to sleep, I have will, I have energy. It'll take you a while, but you could just say this. That's a ritual. I have will, I have energy. This must be kept up until sleep intervenes and memory is lost. Then one may think of the next day's work clearly in detail and make up one's mind not to deviate therefrom. And even under great pressure and temptation, don't deviate from it. And this will give the subconscious will a force that nothing else can equal. The subconscious will thus strengthened. All he's talking about is ritual and routine and making sure you stick to it. And then that starts to build up the will, right? So we can see from what Dr. Lancelin has to say that tenacious routine has been found by him to be a promotive factor, just as I maintain that it is. Even though we disagree as to the reason why, tenacious routine is really an aid to projection. And naturally, I believe Dr. Lancelin is mistaken in his belief that the subconscious will is strengthened. If we examine the matter carefully, we shall find that it is the impression made by the routine which is strengthened. It is the rooting of the habit which becomes so strong that it bursts forth, thus suggesting to the subconscious will to perform the action. Who defined magic to create change in accordance with will? On the Tree of Life, the whole system around ceremonial magic, there's an astral level to that Tree of Life. They don't talk too much about astral projection when you're starting the elements out for a reason, but they do teach you about it, how things come to manifest into the world through the energies until they get into the astral or the foundation energy, and there's an actual blueprint of what needs to be materialized. Same thing when we're growing spiritually up, when we're winding up the tree spiritually. We're going from matter to spirit, spirit to matter. That astral level is still there. So imagine the subconscious will as a locomotive and the stress as the engineer. The will being the train, the stress being the guy running the train. Now, in order to get the locomotive to move, the engineer must cause it to move. The locomotive will not move of its own accord. Any of the factors which I have listed when coming to the surface during sleep will suggest action to the subconscious will. The subconscious will must obey this action. If it were true that it was dynamized so powerfully that it could not hold itself back, the subject would surely be in a predicament during his waking hours, for his suggestions would then amount to naught. So remember this. It is the suggestion which bursts forth, not the subconscious will. And the suggestion may come from either the conscious or the subconscious mind. And I agree with him. And there are occultists today that say it's the will that bursts forth. But the more I look at what Vuldoon is saying, the more it makes sense. It's not, the will is the deciding factor of it all, for sure. Without it, nothing would burst forth or manifest. If the subconscious will can operate without first receiving a suggestion, how would the astral projector ever be able to control his movements? In fact, how could we control our actions when conscious? The fact that the subconscious will moves the body does not in any case denote that it does so because it's hyperdynamized, right? The more, and we got to do the Fringe FM thing, or at the top of the hour, but the more I study this, man, the more I realize how right he is. So now, yes, it's a beautiful moon tonight. I hope you're listening to the show, watching this moon. There's a partial eclipse going on. Beezy says she can see it from Brazil. I'm going to walk outside and see what I can see. I love full moons. I stay awake pretty much all night during full moons, but it's also a good time to try to astral project. But think about this. This is the reason why a lot of people never succeed doing this, while others, just do it. I did it sporadically. I don't even know how I did it, because we don't understand the consciousness. A lot of people don't understand consciousness, the subconscious, the will, the routine, and what he's calling, the suggestion of the will to be manifested. It's the expression of that suggestion for the desire to be fulfilled. Are most of these people that aren't getting out of body, do they even have that enough built-in routine and desire in them for it to even happen consciously? Makes a lot of sense to me, man. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Hit me up in the chat or call at 501-777-5631. This is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop, here live on the Fringe FM. You can listen right now at TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Live 365, or over on YouTube as well. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Olivia from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my two kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
This is Malorcas45, fan of the Fridge FM, challenging everyone to open their mind's eye. Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
All right. Welcome back to Lighting the Void Radio here on Fringe.fm. Wherever you're listening from, thank you guys. Please support the show if you can. The support buttons are down in the description. And you can also get some swag. If you need something from the store that you want us to design, like I think Joyce said, like a tank top or something like that, just let me know. Just make sure you get it, because we have to go through a little bit of work to design it. But make sure you grab it once we put it up. And I'll also email you back to let you know it's up there. All right. So back at it again. Tonight I planned on just talking about the out-of-body experience in total, but maybe it was something about the moon. I can see maybe a little part of the moon that's kind of partially eclipsed tonight, but it's still pretty cool. A full moon itself. So now, so back to this idea that the subconscious will, what the will is and how it needs to be hyperdynamized before it can move the astral body. Vuldoon doesn't believe that. And I don't either, because I can tell you for sure, I never had to, like when I had my first OBE experience, the desire wasn't hyperdynamized. It wasn't so overbearing that I couldn't take it, but I had done the routine enough that it happened. But there's also a letting go part that I don't think he talks about, but I'll talk about that later, which actually triggers at the very end of this thing. So let's get back into this though. If the subconscious will had to be hyperdynamized before it could move our astral body, then how could that will ever move the physical body? That's another good point. The astral body has been calculated by some scientists to weigh approximately 2 ounces. I think we've all heard that. Well, suppose the physical body of somebody that's 160 pounds. The physical body would have to weigh 1,280 times as much as the astral body. Yet we can move the physical body by a mere suggestion, and it's merely suggestion which causes the subconscious will to move the astral body while we sleep too, even though sometimes it emanates from a dream. So if there's anything which needs to be strengthened inside of us, it's the conscious will, so that we shall stick steadfastly to our routines and force its impression upon the subconscious mind. Yet even conscious willpower is not necessary, for we can cause the astral body to move out by an appropriate dream. So everything that we do is impressed upon by the subconscious mind, and these impressions are constantly suggesting themselves, or at least we can recall these impressions unless we're victims of amnesia. We can remember them. So now when an act or thought is repeated and repeated, naturally it becomes stronger. It becomes more impressed upon the subconscious mind, and naturally it will suggest itself more easily. And this is true in the same sense of the word. If you want to manifest something into your reality, it's true in the same sense. So I don't think Dan's trying to understand this. So those that get spontaneously out of body have no will or desire to do so. So where does that come from? Leftover, not left over from a previous life. What he's saying is, it's not, you don't have to have a will to astral project in order to astral project. The reason why the nervousness, or the more nervous type of people have spontaneous astral projections, is because the suggestion of whatever the will that's going on in their life becomes broken to them a lot. So it just kind of naturally happens in the astral too, for them. If that makes sense. Like, most of us aren't like just nervous. Some of us think we are, but nervous individuals become nervous for lots of reasons. Almost like they're scared something's going to change all the time, you know. They can't really get into a routine. So instead of, most of us are in routines daily, but a nervous person, it's almost as if they feel like the routines of their life are being broken all the time. So that feeling is going to be there when they sleep. It's going to be impressed upon the unconscious too, which could cause, because that world is run by the unconscious mind, which can cause an astral projection. I've astral projected spontaneously, especially when I was young. Had no idea why I did it. Didn't want to, just happened. Right? So let's go into how he discovered, what's up, Mythoclast? How he discovered that desire is an activating factor. So desires are necessities, bodily necessities for the most part. And he says, I'm going to tell first how I come to stumble upon the fact that desire suggests directly to the subconscious will while we sleep. One night he went to bed and as he was laying in bed, he noticed that he was becoming thirsty. He desired a drink of water. Now, keep in mind, none of this had anything to do with coming out of body. He just desired a drink. And so instead of getting up and appeasing the desire, I don't think he did it. He said, I did not stir from the bed, to be truthful, merely because I was too lazy. And we've all done that. Man, I'm hungry, or I need to do this, but I don't want to get out of bed. But you still have that desire that you need to do it. Maybe he was drowsy. So the desire was suppressed instead of being appeased. Several times I was on the verge of rising and going for a drink, but he didn't do so, and eventually he fell asleep. Now, when he says, when I regained consciousness, I was in the projected astral body. It was the result of a dream, a very significant or insignificant dream. I was dreaming that I stood beside the water tap above the sink in the kitchen, and that I could not turn it on so that I could get a drink. So he was experiencing that same thirst desire, which his unconscious mind projected it, right? I became clearly conscious in this moment, and my hands, my astral hands, were on the faucet, but unable to turn it, of course. So to my mind, this is one of the many strong indications that an astral projection can be just a mere dream, or cannot be a mere dream. Sorry. And I agree, it can't be a mere dream. Because in a dream, it would be the easiest thing in the world for us to turn the tap and obtain the longed-for drink. Yet Mr. Muldoon has again and again emphasized the impossibility of doing so while projected. He can never affect matter as easily as he could in a dream. So there was this difference between the dream and what actually took place. In the dream, he thought that the faucet was shut off so tightly that he couldn't turn it. But in clear consciousness, he says, I knew it was because my hands would not make direct contact with the sink, with the material. The thought dawned upon me that the desire had played some part in the projection. This is when he first started realizing about all this stuff. So I experimented along this line and found that it was so. One must not conclude that a suppressed desire is no longer a desire, for the suppression is merely by the conscious mind, and the real desire is present in the subconscious mind. Come on, we do that stuff all the time. Even when we have desires that we can't, we think we can't fulfill. Like I'll never have this and never have that anyways, so we suppress it. Or we even adapt. I don't need that. I do this instead. I don't want that. We try to tell ourselves we don't want these desires. But our unconscious mind still tortures us with those desires, whether it be in dreams, unfulfillment as a whole, or just if you're ever around miserable fucking people, you can see that a lot of that is suppressed desire that they're trying to not even acknowledge, So all this stuff comes to the surface and acts as a suggestion while we sleep. So in the case of ordinary desire, we might continue for many days, even months, before the impression of it would be strongly enough to assert itself while we slept. But in the case of a desire which is a necessity, such as thirst, even the course of an hour will greatly impress the desire upon the subconscious mind. You know this without his statements. If you do not, the next time you get thirsty, try to suppress the desire and notice how the desire within you accumulates until eventually you can endure it no longer. You'll notice how forcefully the desire for drink asserts itself. That is just what it does during sleep, suggesting very strongly that you desire water, and the subconscious will be impelled to move the body, for you cannot suppress it now that you are no longer conscious. So if you're asleep, the desire doesn't go away. The unconscious is like you're unconscious, so the subconscious takes over, so to speak. You're not really unconscious. You're just in the subconscious. So if your physical body be incapacitated in a condition where it will not instantly respond the moment the subconscious will is exercised, the astral body will be moved out of the physical. That's the rule, right? Thirst is the strongest and most quickly produced stress which can be used in developing the phase. Now, next to thirst comes hunger, a desire for food. Fasting exerts a double positive influence upon astral projection. You will recall the first reason. We discussed it in Speaking of Energy and learned that during a fast, a secondary source of energy is cut off, and that consequently, the astral during sleep is thrown further out of coincidence with the physical body to recharge the astral with cosmic energy more easily. The second reason why the lack of food is a positive factor in the projection of the astral body is that a desire for food is usually present, especially at the beginning of a fast, and this desire being suppressed by the conscious mind is intensified in the subconscious mind. The stress growing so intense that it comes to the surface and suggests itself while the subject is asleep. The subconscious will is dominated by the suggestion, just as it is in the case of thirst. So, one can readily see the advantage of fasting while trying to promote astral projection, and many occultists have done that too. I shall give some specific directions later for instigating the different stresses intentionally. Now look, I'm not saying this is not the law of astral projection, okay? We've already talked about the law of astral projection. You can astrally project just by relaxing enough and focusing enough, if you've done it enough. But more than likely, what he's saying is that there's a desire, number one, to get out of body already. If you're doing it, whether the strength of that desire is large or small, who knows? That's up to you to measure or whatever. But just like, here's what I'm getting at, because I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but just like the trigger point for manifestation, think about this. When we do sigil magic or a ceremony or anything, what are we doing? We're projecting symbols into the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind, again, is that doorway I showed you guys into the astral. That purple sphere right there of Yesod that corresponds with the moon, that is the doorway into the astral realm. So here down on the earth, that's exactly what we're doing. We're projecting into the astral what we want. Same thing when we invoke things from the astral, so to speak, right? These are ugly, squiggly lines. So whether and I'm going to kind of show you, like, maybe I can show you this on the tree a little better, but so whether we're trying to grow spiritually, which is us, I guess, trying to grow upwards, you want to say that? Like we're trying to ascend in knowledge, so whatever path we're taking to ascend upwards in the trees around the astral realm, it's the same thing when we get out of body. We're down here at the bottom in physical earth. We have to project into that sphere. The only way that we can do that is through symbols. Or actually, not just symbols, but anything that impresses upon the subconscious mind. Smells, right? Tarot cards, whatever, symbols, incense, color, vibration, things like that. This will suggest things to the astral, to the world of the blueprints, the foundation, so to speak. And then it has to cycle through the laws of nature for it to come down. This is the thing that I don't think Vuldoon talks about. But in my opinion, natural law has to kind of take effect for things to manifest. Which, I don't know why my eraser isn't working on this thing. But anyways, that means that it has to come back from the top of the tree, like back down into the earth. When we get out of body, long story short, it's a symbol of what happens magically as well. In fact, when you get past magic and invoking the elements and you move into the stages of alchemy and into the second degrees of the mysteries, they're not really that mysterious now that we kind of understand them a little bit. There's still a lot of stuff we got to learn, but when you get into that realm, most of the work you're doing is astral work. It's in the astral realm. Even if you're in your physical body, the Golden Dawn magicians didn't do this vast ceremony that they did, like in the ceremonies of magic, they went into a vault, a 7-sided vault that corresponded with the planets where the Ruach is, right? The 7 planets. And they would project their work into the symbols onto the walls. It's all about learning how to impress things upon the subconscious mind. So what Vuldoon is saying is if we're not worried about the occult, this fundamental still works at trying to get out of body when we're impressing things to the subconscious mind enough that sooner or later the physical body, our consciousness, will become incapacitated and the subconscious will take over. But the will is behind both of them. It's moving both of them. So if we didn't have physical bodies, the will would still move our etheric doubles around and our star bodies around. In fact, it's in my opinion that the will, or what we call the will, is our higher self. We don't really know what it is. It's a mystery. It's kind of, I guess it's not like God, but it is the thing that it's the deepest fires inside of us. Like if you looked at a flame, right? Just this is kind of a symbol. And you know how you have that blue, the blue flame inside the flame? And at the tip of the blue flame, inside the red flame, if you've ever looked at just a flame, and you've studied chemistry, you know this, the very tip of that blue spot is the hottest point of the flame. So whatever's behind that, let's say all of the flame is our desires. That point where that tip is on that blue flame, that doorway behind that, that's the will. Nothing moves or burns with desire. Nothing, we wouldn't even have desire if it wasn't for the will. So what he's saying is, just by doing daily routines, the will gets involved and it builds up our desire body. And we do these same things every day. And then either if we broke that habit, let's say we stopped, we would feel that unexpressed urge to keep doing the same thing. So you have to, it's almost like you're trying to trick yourself. Every day I get out of body or something like that. Every day I'm out of body. Even William Buellman says to say this stuff. Every day I'm out of body. The will starts to kind of take over. So if you're ritually trying to get out of body every night, you're impressing, even if you're not successful, you're impressing upon the subconscious that you're supposed to be in your astral body. And it may take time, but eventually, if the desire is there, if the will is strong enough there, it will happen. Now, what I wanted to talk about was the trigger point, though, the manifesting point that I don't think Vuldoon gets into. It has to let go at some point. So what happens? The very first time the out-of-body, and I thought about this too before the show, the very first out-of-body experience that I had, the really good one, the very first really good one, and the very first time that magic worked really, really good for me, both fundamentals worked the same way. There was a desire. There was a suggestion of expression, and the desire for it to manifest burned and burned and burned, so to speak. When did it happen, though? It happens the moment we let it go. We consciously let it go, but the subconscious desire is still there. And guess what happens? The subconscious will keeps moving. The consciousness steps aside. The subconscious will manifest it. See, I used to think we let everything go, right? So say, let me just do this in the simplest form. Say we draw a sigil and it's like, I desire this or whatever. And we do our ritual to focus on it and do whatever to focus to make that sigil become manifested. We can burn it with a paper, bury it in the ground or whatever. But if we're still consciously desiring it, even the next day, if we're like, man, I hope that sigil manifests. I hope that thing manifests. I hope it manifests. You know, it never does. But the day we actually let it go and forget about it, for real, consciously, it doesn't mean that the subconscious forgot about it. The subconscious is part of our unconscious side. We gave it to the subconscious, so to speak. So we're not conscious of it. It means we're not thinking about it. It no longer exists in our conscious reality. It doesn't matter, but the subconscious will still has it. And now you've opened a door for that energy to go into those worlds and then come back and manifest into the physical world. It's really strange. Same thing with the out-of-body experience. When I got out of body the first time, that I told you guys this, I didn't even think it happened, and I didn't care that it happened. I even stopped caring. I got so used to the ritual of me laying down, listening to the HemiSync tapes, relaxing, doing the same thing. I did it day after day for a few weeks. I got so used to it that I already figured I'm just going to get up and everything's not going to work. I'm going to feel the vibrations. I'm going to get up and it's not going to work. And I'm okay with that. I actually started kind of thinking about other things I needed to do. And the moment I let it go, the routine didn't stop of my life that I was doing. That was already built up and it was already impressed upon the unconscious. And that's why I kept doing it, because it became a habit. But I consciously let it go. And I expressed to you guys this, and this is the truth. I didn't feel myself separate from anything. I didn't feel my astral body come out of my physical body. Nothing felt different. I just suddenly realized that I was separate, that my body was asleep, and I was sitting there looking at it. And that's a very tricky thing to do, right? To build up that expressed desire, to the point where we're not going to burst. We're not going to like pop. Well, some people do. They give into their animal selves and they pop. But we're beings. We're humans, created human beings. We're made up of animal and spirit. This is what allows us to do these things. It allows us to travel in between the worlds of spirit and the physical, because we are in between those worlds. There's no other beings like us, as far as I'm concerned. We can do that. I don't want to confuse people too much, but to me, it's important to understand, like, how does this actually work? Like, I'm not the kind of person that wants to understand, well, you just do a sigil and you let it go and it manifests, and all I care about is the result. I'm like, no, man, like, I want to understand how it works so I can further investigate this more. Same thing with the out-of-body experience. Well, you just listen to the headphones and count to 10 and you pop out of body. No, man, like, I want to understand why and how that works. And I think Vuldoon nailed this. I don't recall Robert Monroe talking about the will. Matter of fact, I told you, the only person that I've heard just pound things about the will are magicians, especially Thelemites. The Golden Dawn definitely talks about the will, but Thelemites created a religion around the will. An entire religion around it. So, remember when he was talking about how we can do dream suggestion? So if a dream suggestion of moving upwards through the air comes to the surface of the subconscious mind while we sleep, and we're not conscious enough to direct our movements, the phantom body will come out. If the suggestion of an intense desire comes to the surface of the subconscious mind while we sleep, and we project in the astral body but do not become conscious and direct the movement, the phantom will try to appease the desire. The phantom, what he calls the phantom, is our ghost or our etheric double, that body. The phantom obeys the dominating impression which it receives from the mind, either mind, doesn't matter, conscious or unconscious, when it's projected. Although I've enumerated the factors which impressed upon the subconscious mind and coming to the surface during sleep suggest themselves to be the subconscious will, not every factor will act in the same manner, and as we shall see, all three groups are more or less related: dreams, habits, and desires. For instance, we may have a habit of doing a certain thing. We may also desire to do it, and we may also dream of doing it. So if you get the golf bug, I get this all the time. Probably you realize the truth of this. Every time I've gotten the golf bug and I want to play golf, I get it once a year. Not only will I do everything I can to play golf, I'll have dreams about golfing. It's true. Like I'll have a dream about it. Some weird things will happen, and then I will actually golf. A dream can cause a habit can cause a dream, or vice versa. A desire can cause a habit can cause a desire can cause a dream can cause a desire, etc. So the suggestion which you want to burst forth as you sleep must be one which involves movement of body, of self, whether it comes from habit, desire, or a dream, or a combination of any of these factors. If the habit which bursts forth is one which you have a movement of self, the suggestion will be to that effect. If the desire which bursts forth, so to speak, is one which requires the moving of yourself in order to appease that desire, the suggestion will be that to effect. So whatever you're trying to create, he's saying here, make sure that that habit, that dream, or that desire involves you actually moving yourself. This is why he wanted you to think about flying dreams. Because once you become unconscious and the subconscious takes over and the physical body becomes incapacitated, if that desire is there and you have a habit of moving forward, right, or a habit of dreaming about rising in an elevator or flying or things like that, you'll come out of your body in your etheric double. So it requires very little reflection to demonstrate that the most powerful suggestion which could burst forth would be from an impression caused by more than one factor being involved in making the impression. The shade of the impression determines the way in which the subconscious will acts. It might respond with determination, half-heartedly, actively, weakly, depending upon the shade of the suggestion which dominated it, and the extent of incapacity of the physical, and the extent of the energy and the condenser, etc. Now, again, he's only talking about the out-of-body experience here. But think about this on magical terms, man. If every day, let's say you don't even believe in it, right? You don't believe that none of this is real. Or you have questions about it. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. If you did the middle pillar ritual every day, you would start to feel different. You would dream about it. The energies would change. You'd become a more balanced person. You would impress upon it so much that it would just start to happen. You do the neophyte stuff. Let's say you do the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram or whatever, or you do the Christian versions where you invoke Jesus Christ into your heart and you do the crosses around the circle. Whichever version that you do it, things begin to change. You become more balanced. You become more protected. You begin to see these things. When you move into the stages of magic, and you spend months and months and months focusing on one element, let's say earth, and every day you do your ceremonies and you invoke earth into you. And you make your tools, and everything you're doing is about coming to understanding, invoking that element, whether you believe in it or not. The subconscious mind has developed such a power with habit, dream, the expressions, the sensory things that you're doing to yourself. Just on a psychological level, it's going to change your life. The same thing happens with the out-of-body experience. So I can say this like with all honesty, and I'm just going to be real vulnerable with you here. Everything that I've done, and this might be because I'm an Aries, okay? Whether it's been magic or the out-of-body experience or anything like that, everything that I've done, I didn't stay the course because I got so excited that things started happening. All I wanted to do was share it and talk about it. And I would stop doing the things that I was supposed to do. And because I stopped doing either the ceremonies, the rituals, or trying to do the OBE stuff every day, it would seem like my life would start going like this and then just, right? I didn't understand this. I started getting mad at it. The OBE stuff and magic. I'm like, you tricked me. You tricked me. Or you fooled me. I mean, I thought about it for a minute. But the moment I picked up the habits again, the rituals, the ceremonies. I mean, you guys, I don't even have to explain this to you. You know what happens to you if you eat right every day and go to the gym every day. You know what happens to your body. You know what happens to how you feel. It's, eventually it becomes habit. Eventually it becomes a ritual. Eventually all of your energy becomes about being healthy. And next thing you know, you're talking to everybody about it and you're expressing this desire to be the ultimate physical specimen of yourself or feel a certain way. And it happens, it manifests. The same thing happens with the OBE experience, and the same thing happens in magic. The only difference here is that in magic, when we let things go, or when we impress upon ourselves, whether it's a sigil or an invocation or whatever, when we let that go, when we consciously let it go, then the unconscious becomes in control. It can move through the series of natural law at the tree of life, however you want to look at it, far faster, way more fluid, and come into manifestation. The moment you stop consciously caring about it is the moment it manifests. You just do what you're supposed to do because you have a habit of doing it. But you let the conscious desire of it go. So the next thing you know, bam, there it is, happens. Same thing with out-of-body experience. If some of you guys are doing this stuff, if you can feel the burning desire in you so bad right now, some of you have gotten to the vibratory state. I know this because you've said it. Some of you have had some strange experiences, but keep that desire burning. Keep doing the same thing. Then eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to become habitually satisfied with not getting out of body, but you're still doing the same things. And I almost don't want to tell you this, but the moment you let it go consciously, but you're still doing the same stuff every day, is the day it'll happen. It's that praxis, it's that trigger point that not only is the key to the out-of-body experience, but is like the key to manifesting things in our life. Our programs are deep. They run deep. And if you've been brought up around miserable people, your programs, you know how deep those programs are, whether you're conscious or unconscious of them. Right. So I guess fundamentally what I'm saying is you can study either realm, but they go together. Okay, so think of the subconscious will as the locomotive. Remember him saying that? The suggestion. Well, think of the subconscious will as a train and the suggestion as the engineer. I'll say this one more time. The engine obeys the manipulations of the engineer, and the subconscious will obeys any suggestions from the subconscious mind in a similar manner. The phantom, while projected, may be conscious, partially conscious, or unconscious. So some of us have been in that state, like we're slipping in and out of a dream, or we're slipping in and out of lucidity, those kind of things. Or if you're having an etheric projection, you get halfway stuck in your body, or you can't come all the way out, and you're in this weird hypnagogic kind of thing, and it's frustrating because you're kind of stuck in between. So if the phantom is unconsciously projected, it will go through the habitual act or try to appease the desire, whether it may be whatever, and the subject won't even know it. So a lot of times we do get out of body again, but we're not conscious of it. We're not aware. It just happens. So if complete consciousness comes to the projected phantom, the phantom will usually respond to the conscious suggestion which it receives. If, however, a partially conscious projection results, the phantom will perform the action according to the suggestion it receives, and the subject will dream a dream more or less similar to the action. I've done that so many times. Like, I dreamed I was getting out of body one time. I dreamed, like, not just once, several times actually. I dreamed I was flying around and out of body and stuff, but I really wasn't in my etheric body. I was dreaming about it. The only reason why I know this is because I have experienced the difference. And being in my etheric double, moving around and dreaming about having an OBE. I will say this again. If you have a full-blown etheric out-of-body projection, you will have no doubts. You won't ever ask yourself, well, it might have been a dream. That will not happen. It just won't. And people will talk to you and suggest to you, even when you'll swear up and down, I know this was not a dream. This was not a lucid dream. I never lost consciousness. I never got blurry. I peeled myself out like I was just as in reality as we are right now. There are people that are still going to tell you, yeah, but it was probably maybe a different kind of dream. Don't let it bother you. Until they experience what I'm talking about, they will not know. Don't let that bother you. So the suggestion of either hunger or thirst is also active during sleep. Not only impels the subconscious will to go forth and appease the desire, but very often starts the phantom dreaming. Thus a double positive force is exerted, desire and the dream. The way in which hunger and thirst come to the surface of the mind while we sleep was observed even by the ancient Hebrews. They also noticed that in the dream, the desire was appeased. You can read this in Isaiah 24:8. Quote, "It shall even be as when a hungry man dreameth, and behold, he eateth, but he awaketh, and his soul is empty. Or as when a thirsty man dreams, and behold, he drinketh, but when he awakens, and behold, he is faint. The starving, barren tramp who was imprisoned in a dungeon had many dreams in which he enjoyed luxuriant feasts." So do not think for 1 minute that every time you dream, the astral body projects, or that every time you project, the astral body dreams. A strong desire may come to the surface of the subconscious mind and cause a non-projecting dream, for although the desire to move out is in the subconscious will, other factors may not be favorable. Yet the conscious mind must partially be functioning, or you would not have the dream. On the other hand, a strong desire might come to the surface during sleep, project your etheric double, and the subject might not dream of it. Yeah, I mean, that's happened to me. I didn't just slip into a dream. I just woke up afterwards, went back into my body and woke up. So, yes, we're going to talk about sexual desire, but I want to finish this point. Strong desires and habits come to the surface of the subconscious mind every night, but the conscious mind is not functioning, even partially, so no dream results. Yet a projection might result, and this very often happens. In other words, during an unconscious projection, the phantom is actually sleeping. I hope that makes sense. Yet strange as it may seem, the phantom can be walking about, standing still, or lying in the air. You will recall that this state was mentioned before as emotive projection and astral somnambulism. So he came up with all these fancy words for the fact that some people astrally project and don't remember it. And actually we all do. We all go to sleep. Our etheric double either kind of stays in our body, barely comes out, or comes all the way out and starts floating around the ceiling, whatever. And then we move into a dream. 99.9% of the time, we don't remember any of this. We're not conscious of it. But for us, as we're doing these methods of trying to stay conscious while our body falls asleep, we'll start to experience these different levels of these things. Okay? What he's saying is, what he's calling astral somnambulism or whatever, is when all that happens, but you're just not conscious of it. So it happened. If someone was there to see it, they would see it in the dream world, or if they were next to you and could actually see those kinds of things. Some people can, by the way. They would see it. But you would wake up the next day and be like, I didn't even have a dream. What are you talking about? You weren't conscious during that. And this is where things get a little complicated when you're trying to learn all this stuff, because you can just do the methods and astrally project, but understanding it is a whole other thing, right? So Vuldoon goes on to this, and we're going to talk about sexual desire here. My mouth is getting dry. I'm talking too much. So he says that the sexual desire is a negative factor. Before we get into this part of the OB experience, I really would like people to study how the sexual desire works in the occult, in the esoteric. The fire of the sexual forces that are inside you are a very powerful thing when it comes to your life, your energy, manifesting things into the world. This is why religion coded so many things around it, and because it is sacred. It's very sacred, actually, that energy that belongs to you, that energy. But I think maybe back in the day, the reason why they made religions about it is because instead of trying to explain the occult factors of what's going on, they just made it punishable, you know, if you do certain things. And it's stupid shit to me to punish people for sexual stuff unless it's bad, or like unless it's, you know. But I mean, even nowadays, I don't know, in other countries, they do certain things to women for cheating and men for cheating and stuff like that. But I'm just saying that the reason why we don't understand these occult and esoteric factors about these things is because of what, this is going to sound kind of like an oxymoron, but it's because of what religion has taught us about these things. They've made us rebel so much, and it's caused more toxicity about the subject than it has really helped for a lot of people. Now, some people it doesn't. It's made it healthy, but those are only the devoted religious people. But what if you just understood this energy without religion, without bias or anything? What if you just understood it, and why religion as a whole wanted to even try to cover all this up? Study the occult about it, please. Especially Eliphas Levi. There's a secret to all this stuff. So, but we're going to get into what Vuldoon says about it. So Vuldoon says that sexual desire for the OBE experience is a negative factor. But we also have to keep in mind that Robert Monroe and a whole bunch of the parts of his book talked about just this, even when he came out of body, there was this level that he would get at where the sexual desire was so strong that he had to trick it in order to get past it. That people would meld with him, like women would, or female forms, I guess you could say, in the astral were just constantly trying to meld with him. He even ran into like goops of energy that were together that was all kind of, it's very weird. You got to listen to it. But what he did say is that I had to learn how to move past this realm so that I could go out further. So I'm curious. I didn't get to this part, but I'm curious as to what Vuldoon is going to say about it. I think we're at like 10 minutes here. So knowing how sexual desire becomes active during sleep, it might be thought that this would be a strong activating factor like food, thirst, and other desires, things like that, and that it would assist the body to project. Yeah, this is a stress which works against itself. So far as projection of the astral body is concerned, for such an intense desire would become emotional. The blood in the physical body would begin to circulate more rapidly, and incapacity of the physical body would not be present, and consequently the astral body wouldn't project because the energy is affecting your physical body to, I guess, a certain level. More than hunger or thirst, I'm assuming here. In fact, it would be drawn more closely into the physical body instead of moving outwards from the zone of quietude. The subject would be physically restless. The subconscious mind does not conceive of appeasing such a desire otherwise than in the physical body, for it has been accustomed to this and to the body. Well, I, my friend, think Robert Monroe would disagree with that one. Being at such times in a reclining position, so suggesting, in this case, when coming to the surface of the subconscious mind by night, would pull the astral body into rather than away from the physical body. So and that's really all he has to say about that. I'm guessing that he probably didn't run into the same things Monroe ran into then. That's all he has to say about it. Okay, next part. So our etheric double, the phantom, projects more easily to a familiar place. Another powerful broken habit factor, which is a very strong activating effect upon the subconscious will, is that of sleeping in a strange place. That is, in a place where one is not in the habit of sleeping. You probably have no idea how inclined the subconscious mind is to move the body back to the place where it's accustomed to lie while sleeping. So that's one way to do it. He said, when I was about 16, I went one day to visit my aunt who lived in a neighboring village 14 miles away. That night I slept there and before going to sleep seemed very restless, wishing that I were at home, sleeping in the room and bed where I was in the habit of sleeping. I finally dozed off to sleep and shortly I was dreaming that I was flying about with wings in the air of my room at home, just over the bed where I'd always slept. Consciousness came to me in the astral body and I found myself hovering horizontally over the bed at home where I was in the habit of sleeping. This is another experience in which I thought I was dead on first awakening. I didn't see my physical body lying upon the bed as I had been accustomed to. That's because his physical body was somewhere else. When projected in conscious in this particular room, the first thought on seeing the absence of my body was that I had died and had been unconscious for some time, and that while in that condition, the physical body had been buried. Where is my body, I wondered. I need to find it. But scarcely had I thought of finding my physical body. As soon as he thought about it, I was back in the room at my aunt's house. So you can get some idea from this just how slowly the conscious mind functions in comparison with the rapidity of the subconscious mind. Before I had time to consciously even remember that I had been sleeping at my aunt's house, I was back in my physical body. In this instance, you'll observe that 3 factors, habit, desire, and dream, were all present here. First, I was wishing to be at a certain place, and in order to appease that desire, the astral body moved to that place. In any projection, the astral body will always project with much more ease to a familiar place than to a strange place. In fact, the astral body, when exteriorized and unconscious, will be found to meander about in the subject's familiar haunts very much of the time, going through activities which have become habitual to the subject. And this applies not alone to temporary projected phantoms, but to permanently disembodied phantoms, also phantoms of the dead. Dude. Hey, do you guys remember when I was talking about that day I saw that white figure? What's up, Domek? Do you guys remember when I was talking about how I found that, not found, but I saw that white figure move through the hallway in my house? And I thought it was my father, because he always, when he would go to work, he would put on his painter whites and he would walk through the hallway. And when I saw it like out of the corner, not far corner, but this corner of my eye. It was right in front of me. I actually started talking to him. I thought he was standing right there. I just talked about this the other night. I was like, hey, Dad, blah, 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 whatever. I walked around the corner and he was gone. He wasn't even there. And my heart sped up. You know, I got that weird taste in my mouth. Adrenaline hit me for a second because it freaked me out. Like, oh, shit, was that a ghost? But I remember, too, I think my dad was out of town or he was at my uncle's or something. He was sleeping somewhere else. And that day, and I walked into his house and started trying to talk to him. I bet you that's what happened. I bet you he was asleep. And the stresses of not being at home, he gets really stressed when he's not at home. Like really stressed. Hell, when he came to pick me up in Florida, he was so uncomfortable, you know, just being himself in somebody else's home. Like it was insane. And I bet you that's what happened. Like I bet you I saw his astral body going back to where he habitually was just for a moment, walking through the hall, doing his morning routine, putting on those painter whites and going to work. Listen, these people disagree on a lot of things. Like there's things, just like the occultists, the bigger names in the astral and in the occult, they disagree on some things. But the fundamental stuff that they reveal has happened for sure. Like everything that Vuldoon is talking about when it comes to the will, the suggestion of the will, this expressed suggestion of the will, how the will runs the conscious and the subconscious and how it affects everything. Everything he's talking about is spot on. And the more like I said, the more I get into this, the deeper we get into the show, the more I see the OBE people and the occult people talking about the same things. And if they would have met each other, like talked to each other, there's no telling where we would be with this stuff. They're talking about the same damn things, man. We got a few minutes here, but I wanted to get into this. This is kind of the more paranormal side to this. Like the phantoms of the dead are often dominated by the stresses of the desire or habit. This runs amok, for sure. This is a reality. And if you've read Robert Monroe's books, or if you've experienced it yourself, when people die, they'll take their addictions and their rituals and their habits and all their stuff into the astral world while they're in transition, and they'll do those things. This is one of the reasons for like haunted houses or haunted localities. Phantoms of the dead may have desire and habit so strongly embedded within them that they will continually steadfastly in their habits, and they stay there and they conduct the same behaviors even after becoming conscious, simply because the stress is there that they must work it off. It's the same stress of desire, habit, or both, which the phantom or our astral double tries to work off when we sleep. And knowing this, we're able to force the subconscious will to move the phantom out while we sleep by installing strong stresses of desire or habits, or both, which will come to the surface of the subconscious mind during the hours of sleep while our physical body is incapacitated, usually, unless you're sleepwalking. And then our etheric double, the phantom, will be liberated to work off the stress or the habit or appease the desire that we were feeling. But phantoms of the dead, for a time after entering the astral plane, do not conduct themselves in a manner differing from just a normal person that's astrally projected. The astral plane coincides with the physical plane, just as the astral body coincides with the physical body. So some remain unconscious for a time, others are conscious even before the astral cable snaps, he says, and others roam about in a dream or partially conscious. While in either the unconscious or partially conscious condition, the phantom is under the stress of habit or desire and does not deviate from it, as long as the suggestion remains active. But once conscious, he can, if he wills to, breaks off the continual appeasing of that desire and that routine of habit. And as a matter of fact, the stress is so strong that the phantom, in many instances, loiters about its familiar haunts, submitting to the urges of the stress, even while conscious. After death, habits are unbroken, desires are unappeased, and the stress of them still remains. The phantom goes through the process of appeasing some desire which he had in the flesh, or the habit to which he had been accustomed. Do you remember, I don't even know if I should tell this story, but do you remember that guy that Monroe ran upon that was like naked trying to jump? Like, he was dead. I don't think he knew he was dead. But he was in this woman's room while she was sleeping with somebody else, and this is creepy, man. But his etheric double was trying to get involved the whole time because he had such an obsession and a desire for that woman while he was alive. That's freaky. I didn't say it. Robert Monroe said it. But there's 5, 10, 15 other things in his book that he ran into. Same things happen. Not just his book. There's other books that talk about it too. So this is why we can use this stuff to astrally project. But I will say, we also need to become conscious of these things as we grow spiritually so that we don't take those into the nether realms after we leave our meat suits. Right? Or at least if we do, we'll know, oh, I know what's going on here. Okay, I'm dead, and I'm trying to do the same damn thing I was doing before. I studied about this stuff while I was alive, which is probably going to help us out a little, you know. Or Ghost with Patrick Swayze, yeah. I mean, this is all study, like this is all pretty profound, though. He said this is also the reason why phantoms of the dead, while under the stresses of habit and desire, can move physical objects. They could often move objects which their conscious will couldn't move. It's the stress of suggestion which is so powerful and deep-rooted in the subconscious mind that it produces a strong subconscious will response. Wow. I think I'll save this for tomorrow night. But yeah, I was thinking about Patrick Swayze and Ghost too. So, cool stuff, man. It's kind of funny because I just put up a video on the tarot series on the YouTube channel about the path of Shin going from Malkuth to Hod. And you're actually the fire element of you that's burning inside you, usually your desire or your will or something, is being checked by Michael or the angel or, the leading or higher self. So that's kind of what this alchemical process kind of happens in the occult. Our desires cause us to grow and move towards things, right? Whether physically, spiritually, whatever. That's what it does. The will causes these things to happen. And so in that path, if you listen to that video or that tarot card of judgment or the holy letter Shin on that path, is the higher self checking us as we're growing, right? It's kind of making sure we're doing things properly into the higher realm. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent. Go check out that stuff. Check out the tarot series. I'm trying to put one of those out a week right now and go through every card on the deck and get into the deeper, like occult or esoteric meanings of it. You can see by my eyes I'm tired. So I worked 3 days straight and hadn't gotten much sleep, but I still love doing this stuff, man. And if you find any value of this show, please give us some support if you can. You can click the support links in the description, or right now that's the only way because we're updating the Fringe FM website. Brand new. All right. Love you guys. See you in the after show chat for the supporters. Other than that, I didn't even really get to go through the chat tonight. I was so, I don't know, just into this, man. I'm into it. I get going and I get super focused or super obsessed about it, I guess you could say. So sorry for anybody that said hey in chat and I didn't acknowledge you. But I love you guys. All right. Night, y'all. Sweet dreams.
2, 1, blast off!
Air and Mission Control, the Flight Operations Director, commented that he felt like
one of the saddest features of our modern world is being a product of rather materialistic civilization.
Emergency! Emergency! A major catastrophe has occurred. Was this the future you had in mind for us?
They must be smoky space. Dust. They must be smoky space. Dust.
Emergency! Emergency! Emergency!
One guy came in with a bag of space. Dust. We were all shocked and amazed, but everybody wanted to try it. So we all smoked. Didn't really get too high on it. We got a little giggly. And then from there, we just kept smoking. We just kept.
It's secure.
It is believed by many to be the substance responsible